Hello, everybody. It is Tuesday, January 16, 2024. And this is the Unhappy Hour on the New American Media. I needed a couple of days to decompress. After this Cleveland Browns loss, I had been pretty excited about this season. And it ended with a whimper. It ended in a manner that I was unhappy with. And we shared that meme. Just because we're mad doesn't mean we don't care. It's the old man sitting on the the park bench, grumpily in the rain, holding out his umbrella. I find it weird when people say umbrella instead of umbrella. How do you say umbrella, Ella? Do you say umbrella or umbrella? But it's the old man holding out the thing and the umbrella, and he's covering up the rain from hitting the Cleveland Browns helmet. And he's sad and he's mad, but he still cares. I think that was a meme where the old man was holding up the umbrella for his wife, and they may have been bickering, but he still loves her. And I still love this Cleveland Browns team. I thought that this season was a whirlwind. It was an absolute whirlwind. The ups, the downs, game 2. I mean, before you even got to game 2 and Nick Chubb's injury, we had Deshaun Watson finally healthy. After all of the draft capital, the expenditure was spent. 3 first-round picks, a third-round pick, swapping fifths, just to get the guy, to pay him damn near $250 million, fully guaranteed is what it took. So, I mean, it showed you one thing. It showed you that Jimmy Haslam was willing to move all in and spend. By the way, if you're tuning in for, normally, because I'm broadcasting this on the Agree to Disagree platform for the New American Media as well, that show has uploaded. It's on YouTube, it's on Rumble, it's on X, it's on Spotify. Please watch that. This is our sports show called The Unhappy Hour. Oh, let me do the bumper. There we go. Yes, and in theory, that would normally say, this is the Unhappy Hour. But I still need to add some sound to that. But this was supposed to be the return of Deshaun Watson. Much had been made of Watson's talents, his skills, and many bridges were burned in order to get him. It really divided the fan base, getting Deshaun Watson. We'll get to that in a minute because we do want to cover Baker. But first off, I just kind of want to walk you through the season in a nutshell. Watson came out. He didn't look terrible. He didn't look great. Played some games. He was 5-1 as a starter. Not great. The record was solid. I mean, you can't blame that. But the eye test, it just seemed like he maybe looked at one read, maybe 2 reads, and then it was playground football, running around in the backfield or trying to run upfield to gain some yards. You don't really want your quarterback taking hits like that. And eventually, one of those hits broke his shoulder, and he was out for the rest of the season. We'll get to that. But he played okay. You just hoped last year was rust. He was rusty, and maybe that's why. But how many excuses do you make for a guy that's making $250 million fully guaranteed? You expect them to come in ready. Well, he wasn't prepared. Okay. So after last year missing half the season for being suspended, we expected him to come in and start lighting it up. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns a game, damn near undefeated. That's what you expect when you pay a guy to be top 3. But he played okay, and the Browns had a decent record. But then in game 2, I believe, against the Steelers, Minkah Fitzpatrick had one of the dirtiest plays you'll ever see, blowing out the knee of Browns star running back, arguably the best running back in football. Arguably, because, Christian McCaffrey, there's a few studs. But I mean, you're not going to tell me somebody's head and shoulders above Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb's amazing. But the Browns were robbed of that. And it was a dirty play. And here's why I tell you it's a dirty play. Same reason why I say the Tyler Higbee knee explosion of his ACL was dirty. They took him out on the Rams in that Lions game in the playoffs. And it was unfortunate. I mean, the guy dove low and just blew out his knee. And it's like, that's not football. To me, that's not football. If the play you make would get you into a fight at practice at your own team, your team is having your own practice. If you hit a teammate like that in a practice, causing an injury, would you be in a fight with your team, with your teammates, with your coaches? Would you be fined or suspended from your team? If so, that's a dirty play. If you can't hit a teammate that way, it's dirty. Period. And that's what Minkah Fitzpatrick and those dirty Steelers did to the Cleveland Browns. And it just kind of felt like, well, here we go again. But the Browns were resilient. The Browns were tough. The Browns fought all season long. All season long. Injuries across the board. Something like 25% of the roster was on injured reserve. 25% of the payroll, however you want to define that statistic. And we kept fighting. Jack Conklin got injured early. The Browns' right tackle had to get replaced. Jed Wills, the Browns' left tackle, got injured, had to get replaced. Put DeJuan Jones, the rookie out of Ohio State, in. He played fantastic for several games, and then he got injured and had to get replaced. This was a story that went through the entire team, offense and defense, even special teams. Corey Bajorquez got injured, and so did Dustin Hopkins. Dustin Hopkins was on his way to setting a franchise mark for most points scored. Got injured. Those damn Texans brought a return back on a kickoff, and he tried to catch him, and he strained his hamstring. So unfortunately, he did not get that record. But you know who did get a record? Amari Cooper. Against these Texans. Set a Browns franchise record. You know who did things that had never been seen before by any quarterback or by a Browns quarterback? Joe Flacco. So we had Deshaun Watson. He got injured, went to Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who was completely unprepared. And I blame Kevin Stefanski for that. Then we went to P.J. Walker. We beat the 49ers. I was at that game. That was incredible. Deshaun Watson came back, and we played the Baltimore Ravens, the number 1 seed. We're the only team this year to beat the number 1 seed in both conferences. How often does that happen? I don't know. That'd be a great statistic to look up. How frequently does that happen? And when it does, what happens to the team that gets both of those wins? Do they win Super Bowls? I'd be very curious. But the Browns proved they could get it done, missing key pieces. Running back, tackle. Quarterback. Eventually ended up settling on not Jeff Driscoll. We brought him in for the final game to play against the Bengals. Kind of had a bye week. And at the time, it was like, well, look, the bye week makes sense. The bye week makes sense because we're banged up. Could you imagine if Myles Garrett or Joe Flacco got injured in this meaningless game? The Browns were locked into the number 5 playoff spot. Essentially, we got a bye week. And I was at that game. Not too much to write home about, but whatever. And so, you wonder if rest versus rust bit us in the butt. The Browns were on a roll. The Browns were playing well. And Joe Flacco was launching 2-3 touchdowns a game, 300 yards. Just precision passing, confidence, anticipation. Defense was playing lights out. Special teams was solid as it had been all year. And you go, look, this is a team of destiny. You had Jim Donovan, the voice of the Browns, battling leukemia, blood cancer. And guess what? He came back from that, and it was magical. And so I don't want to lose track of all of the magical things. Deshaun Watson came back in that Ravens game. He broke his shoulder, and he still had a perfect, I believe he was 13 of 13 leading the comeback in the second half of the Ravens game. Magical. Perfect. But then that was it. Next day, word came out that he was injured and it was shutting him down for the season. But we stayed resilient. We brought in Joe Flacco. He was lighting up the league. Defense was number one in the league. But we did have problems. Throughout the season, we did have problems. And we cannot lose track of that. That West Coast trip against the Rams, we did not look great. Flacco's first game, I believe. Against the Broncos, we did not look great. And you wondered what kind of team you had. But look, over the past 5 weeks, we were a team to be reckoned with. We were firing on all cylinders, and the Cleveland Browns felt like a team of destiny. And doggone it, there's always next year, right? There's always next year. Because the Houston Texans took care of business and blew the brakes off of us. Now, the game wasn't a blowout the entire time. It was not a blowout the entire time. End of the first quarter, Houston 10, Cleveland 7. Okay, that's a 3-point game. They hit, we hit back. They hit, we hit back. Second quarter, Houston put up 14 points. We put up 7. Okay, so that's 24-14. That's not insurmountable. That's something to work. That's something you can work with. But then in the third quarter, that's when everything fell apart. Joe Flacco had 2 pick sixes, but really by that point in the game, the offensive line was clearly not allowing enough time for Joe Flacco to make reads. And now trailing by 10, you're trying to make some stuff happen, and you tried to make too much happen. I mean, Flacco on the day finished over 300 yards, more than C.J. Stroud. Now, Stroud, by the way, had a quarterback rating of 157, QBR of 98, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Flacco had 307 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 pick sixes that were just backbreakers, and the game was over in the third quarter. 57 QBR and 80 quarterback rating. But really, nothing much was working right for the Cleveland Browns. I guess maybe Kareem Hunt. He had 2 touchdowns on the day, 1 receiving and 1 rushing. But the Browns lost 45-14. I have so many thoughts on this, and I wanted to give myself time to process it, and maybe I never will. Maybe I never will be fully at ease with what I saw. Because I had a lot of thoughts. One of them being, how in the world did Ryan Day fail to win a championship with C.J. Stroud? Tell me. Ryan Day, who craps the bed in the biggest games in the past 3 years. And let's be fair, if the Buckeyes make that kick, and how are you going to blame a kick on the head coach? I mean, Georgia knows they got lucky against us, but man, oh man, does C.J. Stroud look good. Now, just for reference, of course, it was the Houston Texans we traded all those number 1 picks to. Say hi to Nimbus, my cat, jumping in screen there. But the C.J. Stroud pick was not from the Houston Deshaun Watson trade with the Browns. That was their own pick from their own season record, okay? So it's not like we gave up Watson, or they gave up. It's not like we gave up C.J. Stroud to get Watson, okay? So that didn't happen. But you know what we did give up? We gave up one Baker freaking Mayfield, who won the game yesterday against Tampa Bay. Against the Eagles in Tampa Bay. And we're always going to compare. We're going to compare the legacies of why could Coach Stefanski and Browns general manager Andrew Berry, why did they fail to work with a former number 1 overall pick that has talent? Yes, some uneven seasons, but He's played with, 8 coaches in 6 years? There's zero consistency there. That's absurd. But Baker yesterday, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. 119 quarterback rating. Or 19 rating. 337 yards, 3 touchdowns, no mistakes. That's who we're always going to be comparing this team to. And after watching the Browns defense fall apart against the Houston Texans, like I said, part of that you have to attribute to the Texans being good. You know, they're a 10-win team? They were right behind us. They won their division. Oh, but it's a bad division. Shut up. They won the division. Oh, Baker Mayfield won a division, but it was a bad division. He won a division. All you can do is win what's in front of you. And they did. But part of that was because the Texans are good on offense, and they're still missing Tank Dell. Watch out next year when Tank Dell comes back. I drafted both C.J. Stroud and Tank Dell in my dynasty leagues. Ooh, I'm excited for that next year. Even without Tank Dell, they lit us up. And that's a problem. That's a coaching problem. We were talking about who is the real coach of the year, Kevin Stefanski. Well, did Kevin Stefanski play his way out of coach of the year? I don't know. He still did a lot with less. Probably did more with less. But the question was, who's the real coach of the year? Is it Jim Schwartz for getting that defense on track, kind of leading us to victory? It's like, well, if we can win with 4 different quarterbacks, it might be the defense that's carrying the water here. And that may be true. I'll tell you what, Jim Schwartz was not perfect, and that defense got exposed. I don't think we had a sack on the day. If we did, I don't recall it. And that's a problem. You absolutely cannot let another team 0 sacks on the day. Can't let another team get away with that, especially to rookie quarterback. Flacco, on the other hand, had 4 sacks for 39 yards lost. But if you're going off of feel, it felt like C.J. Stroud had way more time, and Joe Flacco never had time. So even in the 4 sacks, how many hurries did he have? I don't know if they track that on here. QB hits. Yeah, they had 7 QB hits. The Browns had 1 quarterback hit from Zadarius Smith. 1. That is absurd. Absurd. That's just painful to look at. Now, I was watching the game live. There were several instances where the Browns were a half second away, 0.3 of a second away from getting a hit on CJ. Couldn't do it. So the Browns defense got out-schemed. Greg Newsome got beat 100 times, it felt like. Nothing we did worked. The one guy that played pretty well was Joker, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. But just think, we see Baker being able. Remember that Eagles team. Yeah, they're falling apart. Yeah, the second half of the season they've kind of sucked. That's the same team that went to the Super Bowl. They were like a flag away from maybe winning a Super Bowl last year. They're still very talented, but you just have to wonder. Would you rather have 337 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, plus 3 first-round picks? 2 of them would already be on your roster, and a 3rd-round pick? Sure seems like we could use some offensive line depth, maybe a linebacker. Remember, Jacob Phillips injured, and not Anthony Richardson, not Schwartz. Middle linebacker from the Colts. He's played in so few games, it's hard to remember his name. Let's just leave it at that. But you just wonder, if the Browns could get it done with 4 different quarterbacks, why did we have to go to such lengths to throw away Baker Mayfield? Let's talk about the rest of the games that happened on the wild card weekend. Kansas City in a blizzard, I believe one of the 5 coldest games ever played. Miami, I mean, you could imagine them not really wanting to be there. Miami got smoked 7-26. KC advances. Must be in the script. I do not want to see Kansas City advance anymore. I'm over it. I'm sick of the same couple of teams winning it every year. I'm over it. Green Bay and Jordan Love played a heck of a game. Congratulations. Aaron Jones looked good too. He's on my Dynasty League as well. Green Bay beat Dallas 48-32. And let's face it, with all of those first round losses with the Dallas Cowboys, that loss in Big D kind of took some of the pressure, some of the heat off of Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Berry, Jim Schwartz, and the Cleveland Browns. It's like, well, if it can happen to Dallas, they had an even better record. They were kind of expected to be there. The Browns were not. Some people didn't even think the Browns were going to be a competitive team this year. I call them clowns because, of course, we were going to be competitive. Our roster was stacked. And I do argue that we've been underachieving for 4 years straight. Once again, that goes to Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski and, now Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz righting the ship, except for this last game. That's that last taste that leaves you in the mouth. It's kind of, bitter. But I think the Browns have been stacked for 4 years, and we've severely underachieved. I'll grant that we probably overachieved this year. And I am proud of, going to the games I went to and the team that I cheered on. I was there at the Jets game when we clinched the playoff spot and the party and the night atmosphere and all the blinking lights. It was so cool. It was neat. Never forget it. But my God, when is it going to be our year? Why does it always have to be next year? It's never this year. That is the name of the book that I'm working on, and I intend to put my head down and finish that book. It's called There's Only Next Year. I've been writing this book for 15, 20 years. I got bits and pieces, chapters here and there, everywhere. But I want to get this book out. I want to exercise this demon and go out and win the damn Super Bowl next year. Making the playoffs, not good enough. Second round, not good enough. Making it to the Super Bowl, not good enough. Your window is now. Some would say, you thought, oh, we got Baker Mayfield, we got Nick Chubb, we got Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward. Look, this is our Super Bowl window. Well, look at it now. Ward keeps getting injured. Chubb is out for the season. Baker's been traded. He was injured. Beckham and Landry are off the team. So these windows move fast. Nick Chubb in his prime, you got to pounce on that. And the Browns allegedly have a really good offensive line. They say, oh, well, the injuries finally caught up to the Browns on the playoffs in the first round against the Texans. Well, maybe. Maybe we were just out-coached. And maybe we should be looking at John Gruden. Maybe we should be looking at Bill Belichick. Maybe we should be looking, dare I say, Jim Harbaugh. Oh, my gosh, that made me ill. Is our coaching good enough? I ask you in the comments, is our coaching good enough? I don't know. But we got some serious questions. Amari Cooper making $20 million next year. Are they going to keep him around or renegotiate his contract? I don't know. But, man, it would be nice to keep him around. But, man, wouldn't it be nice to add another reliable receiver that can consistently get open and make some plays? Getting rid of Donovan Peoples-Jones. I mean, Cedric Tillman didn't really step up into that. Elijah Moore didn't really step up into that. David Bell didn't really step up into that. Who the heck you have left? Chief took a step forward. That was promising, but it's about damn time. But once again, is that because you used to have a quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, Deshaun Watson, makes one read, two reads, and just takes off? I don't know. But with Flacco, that offense looked like how it's supposed to look. A lot of nice passes with zip, a lot of yards after catch. Get your playmakers the ball in positions where they can do damage. So we got question marks. Who else is going to provide a consistent pass rush? Did Myles Garrett play his way out of Defensive Player of the Year? Did Joe Flacco play his way out of Comeback Player of the Year? You know, I went back and forth on this. Flacco, Baker. No, it's not Damar Hamlin. I am grateful that we did not witness that man expire on the field last year in the playoffs. No, the second to last game of the year, I believe it was. Bills and Bengals. But if you're going to win Comeback Player of the Year, you need to come back and you need to play. And he hasn't played all year. I think he's made 2 tackles. He's been in a couple of plays. That's not enough to make Comeback Player of the Year. Look, Kareem Hunt had 2 more touchdowns, extending his career high. I think he had 9. What's he at, 11 now? I think Kareem Hunt moved up. I think Flacco slid backward. And I think Baker moved up because he got a playoff win. Actually, I don't really know when they technically vote on these awards. Are they still taking into consideration playoff games? I don't know. I think Jim Schwartz slid backward for Assistant Coach of the Year. Kevin Stefanski slid backward for Coach of the Year. Flacco, Miles. Legacy takes a hit. We were 4 games away from being NFL champions. Couldn't even get past the first opponent. That hurts. That one hurts. Going through some of the rest of the games, Detroit was hosting the LA Rams. And it was so interesting. I saw that quarterbacks Jared Goff, formerly of the Rams, then went to Detroit. And then Matthew Stafford, formerly of Detroit, went to the Rams. I saw the side-by-side comparison. It looks like they have the same amount of yards, same amount of touchdowns. Like, if you look at their stats, they're damn near the exact same player. Pretty astonishing. You know, but sometimes people just need a fresh start. Maybe there's nothing wrong with people. It just need a Sheryl Crow sang a song. I think a change would do you good. But Detroit got the better of the Rams. They advanced, winning 24-23. Hey, I was happy. I'm theoretically pulling for Detroit. Not anymore. Because they're going to meet, they're going to be hosting Tampa Bay. I'm pulling for Baker Mayfield. I think the Browns did him dirty. I think he was plenty good enough to win a Super Bowl with the Browns. And we could have used those extra draft picks to get some linebacker help, some offensive line help, wide receiver help. You know, how much am I supposed to go on and on about it? But I'll be pulling for Tampa Bay. Then the final game of the wild card weekend was Pittsburgh at Buffalo. The game was close-ish, but Buffalo kind of remained in control of that and kept it there. I watched that play where they're saying Josh Allen faked slide. He pulled a fake slide like Kenny Pickett did in college. I didn't see it that way. He turned around. Yeah. I didn't see a fake slide. I saw him do something that kind of froze the defenders for a second, and he took care of it and scampered in for a touchdown. It was a good play. So I assure you, I'm pulling for Buffalo. They've never won a Super Bowl. They lost all of those Super Bowls in the 90s with Scott Norwood. There's the joke, what does Bills stand for? Boy, I love losing Super Bowls. So yeah, I'm done with KC. Mr. Pfizer, get out of here. I'm done. Done with you. Please go away. So the question is, who are you rooting for in the playoffs now? I'm rooting for Baltimore to lose, so I will be rooting for the Houston Texans. I like CJ Stroud. I hate that he's the one that knocked us out, but we weren't good enough to win. What are we supposed to? What are you gonna do? People were like, "Oh, I hope we play the Jaguars. I hope we play the Colts. Out of all the teams, I hope we don't play the Texans." It's like, you know what? If you can't beat the Texans, how are you gonna beat the Ravens? How are you gonna beat the Chiefs? How are you gonna beat the Bills? It's like, just throw our names in a hat. I don't care who we play, because now we just got to play consistent. We need to play the best ball of the season. And that's what sucks. The Cleveland Browns were playing the best football of the season, the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Great defense, great special teams, great offense. And then we just laid an egg. I can't blame Joe Flacco 100% on this one. Like I said, he was getting hit a lot. We were in the hole. He was trying to make some things happen. A couple of bad throws. But, I mean, 45 points given up. Take 14 away. That's still 31 points you gave up. It's more than 7 a quarter. And the Browns could only muster those two first half Kareem Hunt touchdowns. One running, one receiving. They laid goose eggs in the third and fourth quarter. I mean, not much was working right. But, you know, did the injuries catch up to him? Yeah, maybe. The offensive line, maybe. Amari Cooper's heel. He said last week he would have been able to go if they needed him. Could he? Was he really himself out there? I don't know. Myles Garrett hasn't had a sack in how long? How injured is that shoulder? He's been fighting through it, but has he been as effective? I don't know. I am sad. I am really sad. I mean, I tried to get my dad, I got him a brown sweatshirt, and I did see him wearing it. He went up with a big group and watching the game and kind of getting that excitement again. Like, he's a Cardiac Kids fan, and the Bernie days and Don Strock during the strike years. But he kind of been away from football for a little bit. It's been a while since his two sons played the sport. And with all the woke stuff being pushed by ABC, ESPN, Disney, it's off-putting for a lot of people to follow sports. Geez, and how complicated they make it to even find the games. Kansas City, pay money and download this new app called Peacock. It's like, how about just put it on TV? Huh? Is this a radical concept? You're going to sell me Coca-Cola and Toyota trucks. How about you sell the advertising and just put the game on TV? It's just one more app. That's death by 1,000 paper cuts. How many damn apps do you have? We're probably spending more on all of these apps than we used to spend on cable. It's way more confusing. Get it together, please. Making it difficult to be a fan, I just don't see it in the interest of the business model for these professional sports leagues. Maybe it is. Maybe you're having record-breaking numbers and you're doing just fine, just fine. Okay. I don't like it. And I know a lot of other people don't like it either, so call me crazy. But that's who we got. That's who I'm rooting for. And this Browns season, we cap it off, and, now it's time to start thinking. Step number 1, how do we feel about coaches? Do we extend them? Do we replace them? That's step number 1. General manager. Do we keep him? Do we replace him? That's step 1A, step B. You could flip-flop those two. I mean, there were a lot of wins. DeJuan Jones, the late-round draft pick, stepped in admirably, did a great job at tackle. That's a credit to Andrew Berry, the GM. Joe Flacco came in as the 4th quarterback. That was great, but that's also a fail that they had Dorian Thompson-Robinson so unprepared. He was our backup quarterback for the season. That was a failure. How much of that goes on to Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt? It's all part of a vast cornucopia of, there's layers. It's a mosaic here. There's a lot of things to consider. I mean, look, you got Nick Saban out there. You got Bill Belichick out there. They started in the 90s. I mean, they didn't start in the 90s, but they were on the Browns roster when the Browns were stolen, taken to Baltimore. how incredible would it be to get them back as defensive coordinator and head coach and bring the Browns this damn Super Bowl that we've been waiting on forever? You know, I'm starting to feel the urgency of just one before I die. It's a t-shirt. It's a long sleeve Browns shirt that I have. You know, my father. There's grandfathers. There's older folks across Greater Cleveland and really across the world. Shout out to Paul Brown. I think maybe I'll see if I can get Brown superfan Paul Brown from the UK to join our program. Had an extra seat, was able to get him front row at the Browns Bengals game. That was pretty neat. But they're Browns fans all over the globe. We just want to, we want to see one Super Bowl win. And now Baker Mayfield is closer to that than the Browns. As good as the Browns were all season, Baker freaking Mayfield is closer than us. Make that make sense. Once again, that's Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. But let's be honest, we need to level up. If we were a better team, maybe we wouldn't even be playing in the wild card round. If we were a better team and had the best record in the AFC, we could have had a bye week, a legitimate bye week. Maybe that would have helped. An extra week for Amari Cooper to get ready, an extra week for Joe Flacco to prep. The thing I didn't like about, once again, I'm not going to go all in and bash Joe Flacco because I loved watching him play with this offense. Man, was he playing well. I really started getting nervous watching him do all of the interviews. You know, the South Park has a joke about celebrities loving the smell of their own farts. You know, it's like it's a little metaphor about just like how your crap never stinks. And it's just, I didn't want downtime to stop and think about it and pat yourself on the back and here's this great story. And it's like, no matter how focused you are, this crap does creep in. And I was really hoping that wasn't going to be the case. I wish we could have just went for it and just kept going head down and avoided some of that. The publicity, the self-aggrandizement. But also, Flacco was nothing but a professional since he got here. You know, yeah, a propensity for turnovers, and it ended up biting us in the ass. But once again, like I said, you take those 14 points off the board, the Browns still lose 31-14. Take those 14 points off the board, Houston goes from 45 to 31. Add 14 points. They still win 31-28. There were 100 problems with the Browns on game day. So I'm not going to sit here and bash Mr. Flacco. I mean, I was close to saying, hey, maybe he should be our starter moving forward. I loved what I saw in 4 of those 5 games that he played with us until that playoff game. That one, no bueno. But now it's time to make decisions. It's not just the coaching staff. It's not just the GM. It's the players. How are we going to renegotiate some of these contracts? Who are we going to draft? Missing a first-round pick for the 3rd freaking year in a row? We're entering season 3. Halfway through season 3, half of Deshaun Watson's contract is up. Can you believe that? Paid $250 million. We've seen him for less than half a season. And then what? Roughly half a season. Twice. We've got 1 season out of him in 2 years. Ugh. You know, is this the worst trade in sports history? I mean, jury's still out, but I mean, the way you remedy that is by winning a damn championship, winning a title, a Super Bowl, an NFL football championship. And I would like to see just one of those before I die. And then I'd like to see a few more. Don't get me wrong. And I do what, I was hoping that the Browns could win the Super Bowl this year. Then I said, I hope Baker wins it next year. Then I hope we win 10 in a row. Well, that dream has been dashed. So I do hope Baker just hurries up and wins one. Then it's out of the way. I can get the full I told you so. Baker has completely redeemed himself. You know, I was told nobody likes Baker in the locker room. Tampa Bay loves him. No other team wants him. Yeah, Sean McVay wanted him. They had an injury, and guess what? Tampa Bay wanted him. He's too short. He'll never play quarterback in the NFL again. Okay, he's playing quarterback again. Yeah, well, he'll never be a starter again. Yeah, well, he's a starter. Yeah, well, he can't win a division. He's not that good. They won a division. Yeah, but it's the worst division. He still won a division. Yeah, well, Baker can't win a playoff game. Well, he won a playoff game. You know, he's good enough to win you a Super Bowl. He made a lot of really nice passes. He looks comfortable out there on the field. Amazing what having two functional shoulders and some stability in your organization can do. So that's my pick. That's who I hope wins it. I hope it's a Tampa Bay versus Buffalo Super Bowl. You know, if Tampa can't get past Detroit, you know, I was going to root for the Lions, but they just had that team up north win a championship. Yeah, I don't know. That's a lot of love for that state up north. Do they really need to win 2 championships back to back like that? I don't know if I could stomach that. But I do generally like the teams that haven't won in the longest. So that would be Buffalo. I will, like I said, it's not about Tampa Bay, who recently won one with Tom Brady and won another in my lifetime. But I do want Baker to get one of those Super Bowls and just finally say, I told you guys he was good enough. I'm already vindicated. This is all house money. I proved my point. Baker proved his point. I do hope they sign him to a long-term contract and build the team around him. I hope he can stay there for a little while. I like what I'm seeing. But yeah, Buffalo would be a nice team to root for. They've never won one. Won a title. Green Bay, Jordan Love. I mean, that's a nice story, but I mean, Green Bay's won several in our lifetimes. And KC, get out of here, KC. I'm definitely rooting against KC. I can't root against Green Bay. I don't dislike Green Bay, but you know, here's where the playoff seeding gets interesting, right? This is where Baltimore comes in the AFC and San Francisco comes in the NFC. But look, they have both recently won championships. I'm rooting against both of them for that reason. So tell me who you're voting for. Disappointing and inspiring, exhilarating season for the Cleveland Browns. Doggone it. Just win one Super Bowl before I die. Sooner the better, please. This is dragged out quite long enough. There's 32 teams in the NFL? Yeah, get one. Get one, please. All right. Well, anyway, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll be back. I don't know how often I'm going to do the Unhappy Hour shows because I can keep following the playoffs, which is a lot of fun. I do enjoy NFL postseason a lot. But yeah, maybe I'll get Zach Barris back on and we can start talking about the NBA, the Cavs, and the rest of the league a little bit. And of course, it's Cleveland baseball spring training coming up in about a month. So there's always interesting sports stuff to talk about. That's for darn sure. So please click subscribe on the podcast, the Unhappy Hour Sports Show, and subscribe YouTube. I don't know if it's youtube.com/the Unhappy Hour yet, but just search the Unhappy Hour Sports Show and hit subscribe. And finally, on Facebook, do a search for the Unhappy Hour Sports Show, a support group. The Unhappy Hour Sports Show, a support group. And join the private group. Tell them that Brian sent ya. Okay. Well, I'm going to sign out now. Doggone it, Browns. Almost. Hey, there's always next year, right? There's always next year. All right, sign out for everybody here in the TNAM universe. I appreciate you. I love you. Go Browns. And I'll talk to you soon. Peace.